Rabbi Sai Azoi. Check out the stats. Today, in 2025, life expectancy is more than double what it was 100 years ago. It's not so uncommon to find children well into their 70s taken care of, looking after their elderly parents. Of course, this increase can be attributed to medical advances and better hygiene. But why was it that HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided now to organize things? There's been such an exponential increase. My hi. That's not my question. That's the question of the remarkable Gadol, of Aharon Leib Shteinman. Born in 1914, he was brought up in Brisk and was a neighbor of the Briskerov. He also studied under Rav Aaron Kotler in the 1930s. In 1937, to escape the Polish draft, he fled to Switzerland. But in Switzerland, he was taken to a forced labor camp. After a short while, he was let off of the manual work because he was considered too weak and too thin to bear a physical burden. He came to Israel in the 1940s, and soon he became established as a Torah giant, including leading the Ponevezh Kollel and the Ponevezh Yeshiva Ketana. But somehow that physical frailty, first noticed by the Goyim in Switzerland, somehow became part of his greatness. His daily food intake was a cucumber, a boiled potato, and a few spoons of oatmeal. Any trace of creature comfort was totally rejected. For 6 decades, he slept on the same plank board and thin mattress which was first given by the Jewish Agency when he came to Israel. I remember going to see him in Bnei Brak on Chazon Ish Street, number 5. It was an unbelievable scene. I don't know whether the apartment had ever been painted, but certainly the walls had not been touched in over 30 years. It was so devoid of any Gashmias excess. In fact, were it not for gravity, I don't think they would even have had a floor. He once came to Hanof to speak. When they offered him a very basic upholstered chair with arms on, he took one look at it and kindly asked to be given a more basic chair to sit on. Essentially, he was his spirit, and what a spirit that was. Until his 90s, he was basically in the Kosle-based Medrash, and his Sforim, the Ayeles HaShachar and Chumash and Shas give us a glimpse. But then in his 90s, he had an epiphany. He decided to go out and give chizuk to Yidden all over the world. And he traveled from Mexico City to Berlin, from France to Gibraltar, encouraging people, advising people. Until his 100th birthday, he carried on with these travels, and his iron will prevailed over his frail body. And his door became constantly open to people coming to see him, asking him things, almost 24/7, helping them, helping all of Klal Yisrael. Now back to his original question. Why has life expectancy increased so exponentially? So first, a bit of background. In this week's Parsha, Esav excels in Kibbud Avim. The Medrash reports that Rabbi Shimon Gamliel said he spent his entire life serving his father, but he never reached even 1% of Esav's level in this mitzvah. The Zohar says that no one ever surpassed Esav, and even Yaakov Avinu himself commented about how his brother never once angered their father Yitzchak. This itself needs some biur. Why was it that Esav was so good in this mitzvah? The Maral explains that Esav, he was very strong in his seichel, and the mitzvah of Kibbud Avim makes a lot of sense. After all, parents bring a child into the world and look after him. And Esav, of course, was very focused on this world. For a Torah Yid, it can actually be more challenging, because he knows there's a third shutaf in a person coming into the world, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which could in theory weaken the appreciation, the centrality of the role of the parents. Esav had no such challenge, and therefore he excelled. Says Rav Shteinman, this is why people are living for longer. As the end of days approaches, the long war with Esav comes to its conclusion. We need to somehow dilute Esav's hold in this area, and therefore Hashem are letting people live for longer to give us more of a chance to do the mitzvah of Kibbud Avim. And the good news is, I heard this from doctors in hospitals, nurses in hospitals in Britain, the Yidden are taking a real lead and looking after their elderly parents like no one else. Rav Shteinman was the only person in his family to survive the war. His parents were murdered. So he himself didn't have such an opportunity to do the mitzvah of Kibbud Avim. He was once invited to a kenes in Bnei Brak to speak about this particular mitzvah, but he refused. When they pushed him as to why, he said, when I was 10 years old, once, on one occasion, my mother cooked food for me, which I decided not to eat. So I don't feel, he said, that I'm sufficiently strong in this area to speak to other people about the mitzvah. But one imagines that his parents, from their vantage point, schlepped a lot of nachas from him. At the age of 104, his beautiful soul was returned to its creator, a journey which he had been preparing for almost the entirety of his life. In keeping with who he was, in his will he asked for no hespedim, and perhaps a few points from the staggering will that he wrote themselves pay tribute to him. For example, he asked, "Don't write any articles about me in the newspapers. Don't print funeral notices and don't announce it on the radio or megaphones. 10 people are enough to make a levaya. I ask anyone mentioning me not to call me a God-fearing person, so that when I go to the world of truth, I won't suffer embarrassment." The last point he said was as follows: "Since many people are mistaken about me, as far as I'm concerned, I advise people not to name their children after me, but I don't forbid it." What a humble giant. Good Shabbos. If you have stories of Gedolim you'd like to share with us, please email glimpsesofthegadlus@gmail.com.